Okay, so it is 3:03. I will call the meeting continued. Tony, is there anything special we need to change?
No, just the continued meeting of May 6, 2021, continued to today at a date and time certain. The chairman has now convened that meeting, the continued meeting.
Yes. So the purpose of the extending of the meeting to today was to discuss the resignation from District Manager Chris Shoemaker, which the resignation was received on May 6th. So the purpose of today's call is really talk through plan and really our go forward plan from this point. I guess I'll start with just I had a conversation with Chris this week. And the way it sits now, we've kind of agreed for Chris to serve out till, I think it was at the 28th, end of the month. End of the month. Business as usual. Part of that, Chris will be working with leadership, our staff leadership, with transitioning, identifying anything that's in flight, transition of any current knowledge that he has. And Chris has made a decision that it's coming up on his 5 years, and it's just time for, from a career growth perspective, for him to look forward. We did leave the door open after the 28th. If there is an opportunity, if we both agree, for him to be able to act as in a consulting capacity, if there's still transition that needs to happen. Now that could be dependent on, Chris' circumstance at that time, but and he would be able to do that from a virtual position, so he wouldn't have to be in here. So basically, in a nutshell, from what we know now, and I'll open it up so if there's any other questions, but the plan is for Chris to do transition between now and the 28th, business as usual, on site. If there's an opportunity after the 28th, which will put us into June, for whatever time is determined, Chris can act in a consulting capacity for whatever duration we determine at that point in time. I'm going to be meeting with staff probably starting next week to do a couple things. One, put our transition plan together, make sure we have transition routines in place with regular check-ins to make sure that we're on pace. And also look at, I think it would be an opportunity for us to just do an organizational analysis of where we're at today, how our org may change, or how it could potentially change in the future based on what our go-forward plan is. And I think some of that would be based on conversations we have today on where we see the position going. Is it as is? Do we feel there's opportunities to make changes? And staff included in the packet that you have there is some approvals we'll need around just Chris's, some of his accrued vacation. We'll need to talk through that, but there's a job description that's in there so you guys can take a look at it. I'm sure this is something we'll have some ongoing discussion on. I don't think we'll land on a job description today, but I would love to hear some feedback if you have any ready today. If not, take the job description, take a look at it, and we'll have further opportunities to discuss probably in our next board meeting on any input that you may have to augment the job description, which will give me time to come back with maybe staff's recommendation along with my recommendation on any potential changes to the position or to the org in general. So I'll pause there, and if there's any comments from the board.
Okay, I'll start with my comments because I was quite shocked by the resignation letter. And on a separate note, I guess I'm still trying to investigate why I did not receive the email when other board members got it, because I did not.
Okay, that was probably an oversight.
On that, well, Bob, to that point, I have the email that went out. If you want to look at it, I can show it to you.
I got the email, I got it, but I didn't get it till Friday.
Oh, okay, because it all went out all at the same time, 11:29 a.m. on Thursday, May 6th.
Okay, that's one of the things that I wanted to see. I did not, my computer told me on my website computer when I received it, which was Friday.
Okay.
So if that's the case, and it was in wherever these things are.
Pluto,
Okay.
likely.
So as I started to allude to when this was first broken or broached very late at our last meeting, I wanted to consider, and I asked Chris to go to lunch one day this week with me so I could congratulate him if he had a new enterprise he was pursuing. But anyway, I left the meeting with the impression that we still have an opportunity to salvage this relationship. And I think that because he doesn't currently have a new job, not to say he certainly couldn't get one, but he doesn't have one right now that's in the offing. So I, for one, would like to entertain the possibility of finding out what it would take for us to encourage him to stay, whether, it's perks, vacation, money, whatever, because I think his contribution has been so significant based on my 15 years with this board that I do not want to lose him. That's my bottom line. I do not want to lose him. So that's kind of where I'm at. And we can.
And then what I think we'll do is we'll go across the board and then
Yep.
we'll give Chris a chance to respond how he so chooses. So, Mr. Guy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a resolution that I would like to offer regarding this item. I have enough copies for everyone. If you'll pass them out as I read it, I appreciate it very much.
I need one also. Somewhere doing. Oh, got him. Never mind.
Whereas Chris Shoemaker was appointed district manager on June 20th, 2016, and where Mr. Shoemaker has performed his duties in an experienced and professional way, and whereas Mr. Shoemaker has employed several managers who have made a positive impact on the district, and whereas Mr. Shoemaker has managed several large projects with professional care, such as lake bank restorations, utility relocation, additional office space for staff, while simultaneously reorganizing the staff into functional areas of expertise. Therefore, this Board of Supervisors expresses confidence in the work Mr. Shoemaker has performed and appreciation for the high quality of such work, and therefore awards Mr. Shoemaker a new 3-year contract effective with the beginning of the next pay period with a salary of $110,000 plus normal benefits for retirement and health care, etc., with an automatic 4% increase on each anniversary date of this contract unless determined otherwise by the full Board of Supervisors after review. Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution.
I'll second it with this for discussion.
Okay. Discussion?
Yeah, first thing is that I think 110,000 is ridiculous. I think it's a slap in the face. We go out in this community and go out on the street to find somebody that can do the job that we're looking for, and he has done. 110,000 doesn't get it. I could go 120,000. And the second thing is that we have a letter that Chris has provided us with some issues relative to back pay, not used overtime, and all the other things that when I was running my business, I almost went to jail over. But I would like to get those included in the resolution or the motion bill, that we immediately pay that down, those 500 hours down to, let's say, 120 hours, such that 120 is banked, and that it would be then distributed out over that next 3-year period, with any that is withstanding at the end of the 3 years would be paid as cash out.
Wow, that was a mouthful.
In other words, I'm not trying to short sheet anybody.
Right. Okay.
What happened here?
I'm with you there.
Yeah, what happened here, my opinion, probably shouldn't have happened, but it happened to me when I was working. There are times when, and it's created the monster that we've got. We've got a man that is a jack of all trades. He isn't getting, I don't know about your sleeping habits, but I know one thing, you aren't taking much vacation. And with all the things we've got, no human can operate like that. We need a backup plan. The plan that we had a little bit of a shortcoming. We have a utility manager, it's great. We have a public works manager, but I don't believe either one of them are in a position, and that they would admit they're not in a position that would be in a line of progression to district manager position. So we would have to go out and find somebody, but I don't know where this came from, but I totally agree with it with those stipulations.
Tony, is it pertinent during the middle of a motion to get input from Chris prior to voting?
Yes, and I guess just on a point of order, as to Mr. Tinkle's suggestion, it would be an amendment to the proposed resolution.
Yes.
which would, and I think Mr. Guy moved the resolution as drafted. So we need.
I'd ask for his
Basically, we're
approval of the
moving to
amendment.
amend, request an amendment
So
of the,
can we get Chris's input before we approve the amendment to the,
anytime the board wishes to, they could.
are you comfortable with
The board-
asking?
I think it would be easier in my position that if I'm Mr. Chris, that I'd rather answer to the amendment than I would to the basic. It does have a few benefits in what I offer.
Yeah, and again, yeah, the board has a prerogative to, as to how they want to proceed, as to which one.
Yeah,
I'll operate anyway.
I'd like to take, and if Bill will amend or agree to the amendment of addressing these side issues, then I would have no problem with hearing what Chris has to say.
Well, I would be comfortable at a 115. 120. I would go from 110 to 115. I heard you, Bill.
Let's not
We're equivalent, right?
I feel, what's that show on television where they come in there and they're buying their business?
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank. I feel like
So-
I'm in Bass Tank. I would agree with that. Okay, I'll go along with that.
Sorry, the maker will agree to the amendment.
Of the original 120, the original?
120, and I guess for clarification, when we get to the point, if voters taken it, when the voters taken on it for clarification, I'm not sure I understood the concept. I think you had said, Mr. Tinkle, pay down 500 hours to 120 hours and spread it out over 3 years. I'm not sure what would be spread out over 3 years. I'm just trying to get
The remaining, yeah, as I understand it, reading this, I was caught a little bit by surprise.
I don't have that in
guess.
front of me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, the way that would typically work is when there's two ways. One, in normal environments, anything that's over and above would just roll over and it would accrue over time, which gives people the opportunity for early retirement and those types of things, if your policy allows for it. Our policy doesn't allow for that. So we have handled these in one-off situations where we have balled out or cashed out vacation time when it goes above the policy. But again, if we do this today, whatever we do, we need to look at the revisions of the HR manager manual and make sure this doesn't continue to happen. That's a separate thing.
My whole reason for bringing these up is that I know what happened on this because I've been before the Department of Labor on this very issue. I want to get that huge number down to a reasonable number
So
that
what,
it's behind.
right. So what should happen, in my opinion, based on my experience, is whatever the amount is that is allotted annually. And we have to look at what our fiscal year is. I mean, where we're at in the fiscal month, because if we just back it down to the max, there's probably a good possibility he's not going to take that time off if he does choose to accept it. So I think you go to, I have to look at the numbers. I don't know all of them, but you would take anything that's above what the policy states, and you could cash exchange that.
Well, the problem is the policy has been, let's say, circumvented in the past because we've paid down. So the policy really isn't in effect. It's been not paid any attention to. So that's what my whole thought was, is pay it down from the 500, get rid of that, pay that as a cash payment, and carry 120. I could go to 80, 120, somewhere in that ballpark, and then we go on from there.
Yeah, and I guess from the board's perspective on a go-forward basis, I don't have the current manual with me or the proposed, but on a go-forward basis, is that then also a message to management, and staff, that the board will strictly adhere to that. So you know, on a go-forward basis, you need to use it, or otherwise, or do you still?
Yeah, it'd be 412. So if 508 or 509.93 is available, that's total accrued. The total bank. 93 has been accrued, I guess, for this year, if I'm reading this correctly, and 52 has been used. So if we try to write him to this year, it would be 412 would be the number that you would back down, or you would cash out. So that would still give 96 available for this year, 52 has been used. So what you'd have is 96, 93.
I'm just trying to get the
52,
number to a manageable number.
So there'd be 44 remaining to use for this year. And I think that still would fall into, I think, what could possibly spill over. But anyway, so you've agreed to the amendment of 120. Before we vote, I think the question is back to Chris. Whether it's this counter or maybe you might have something else in mind. At this point, are you willing to entertain a counter from the board or recommendation for you to stay on?
Yes, Sam, I serve at the pleasure of the board, and that's been my attitude. The only concern I had about this, and you've heard it before in budget, is, residents and what they think, because that's a huge pay increase. I'm not going to argue whether it's deserved or not, but sometime when, budgets are tight and things are tight around, and you're basically handing somebody $15,000. So, that's my only concern, to maybe think about it as something more reasonable. It's in the market now, 5 or 7%, $5,000 or $7,000. But again, I serve at the pleasure of the board, but I always think about the residents and the public fallout and the public impression from it.
The issue is, Chris, is that if you don't accept this or wouldn't accept this, we got to go to the market. And the reality is the numbers that we're paying aren't going to cut it. So why would we go to the market to offer to somebody that's green as grass that you've already got proven track record?
Right.
And so my deal is that's why I stand firm where I'm at. When I've got Washington paying people to stay at home and earn more money, and 75 million somewhat good people in this country voted for that moron. I'm not worried about anybody coming back and saying, why did I offer you that? Because you have a proven track record.
So Chris, if I'm understanding what your response is, if the board approves this 120, it is your intent to rescind your resignation.
I'll serve at the pleasure of the board.
So one of the
Direction of the board.
I'll let you go ahead.
I'll finish yours and I have some comments.
The one thing that I would suggest, and I probably maybe should have suggested this before, is, I think everyone had an interest in reaching out to Chris and having conversations. But I think if we're doing due diligence, we also need to make sure that we reach out to staff to get staff's input. And I don't know, did anybody reach out to staff to get
Yes.
leadership staff?
Yes.
I have.
I did not.
Yeah.
My focus was
Just
on
on
his
yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
because he was the one who was resigning.
Yeah.
So staff had nothing to do with his decision to resign, unless I heard that, and I didn't hear that.
So I have a few things, so let me backtrack. In regards to, and I kind of need probably Chris and refreshing my memory, and maybe Tony. In regards and then I feel like we're gonna be splitting hairs here, so I just want to know how much in detail and how much splitting hairs that we really want to be going with this. In regards to the vacation time and so forth, I do remember before even joining the board a few years back, and the only reason why is because I would remember trying to get a hold of a few different staff members, and I couldn't because they were pretty much, and I'm gonna quote, forced to take vacation time because they were over. So something very similar was already implemented.
It was, I'm trying to recall what that
Yeah.
was.
So then my question is, we already went through this issue years back. So why was it, why are we again?
While we're not
going-
adhering to the policies that we already have in
So
place.
then that goes back on Chris and goes back on the board because we should be aware of it. So with all the respect, Tony, saying that we're gonna start all over again, we had this situation, whatever years back when I was not on the board. So, and then I'm assuming there was a resolution and so forth, something that came to that nature or direction, however, what it came.
I think there was some direction.
Yes.
I recall.
Okay.
I mean, again, I didn't
But
realize
does
this
it
would be a
sound
discussion
familiar?
point. It does, but I didn't
Okay.
know this would be a discussion point, or I could go back and check.
Okay, so that's one. And then in regard, and that's what I was gonna bring in. I think I just don't know how much we really want to bring it to the table. I think there's a lot that came into this decision. I think there's a lot of moving parts. I think Chris does an excellent job in what he does. I do see a lot of value in a lot of things that he does. I don't necessarily think a lot of times that the way that things get done, it's the best way to get there. And that's just, I have to sit here and I have to say it. I have said that things to him before, and he gets it. He gets the job done. The way he gets the things done, I don't necessarily think it's the right way. And we have to think, and we have to look at this organization as a whole. So I don't want to have one superstar, and I always have said that. I want to have multiple superstars. And shame on us from not having a succession plan. And I have said that before even I sat here on this board. Shame on us not having a succession plan for Chris, because I wanted nothing more than Chris to have a better job than this, and for him to get something better, and us to have somebody to ease into his position. We have no succession plan for Kenny. We have no succession plan from any of our other positions. So shame on us for not developing. So now is the time. So this is while Chris is the leader and is up there, it's all across the board from Mary to Chris. So this is a huge problem. We are at will, and I want to respect his decision. So he has made a decision to resign. I want to respect that. Is it going to put us in a tough decision? Yes. Was I saddened that he gave us a 2 weeks notice? Yes. Did I question why such a short notice, and why, given that he worked with us for such a long time, I was expecting more than a 2 weeks notice. However, I respect his decision, and that's how I'm going to leave it. I think there are more issues. I also don't think everything needs to come out of the table. I think people had the ability to talk to Chris, people had the ability to talk to staff. It was up to us to do a lot of digging and understanding. And I kind of want to leave it as that. And I think that's all my comments that I have.
I don't understand the issue with staff, because at least the ones I talked to, it was shock, surprise, disbelief. So I would question why what's the problem? Somebody obviously knows something I don't know. Are there people at the board, at the table here, that have some knowledge that I don't have, that there is an issue with staff?
Well, I think,
Because I've not seen anything. Nobody's come to me. I haven't seen any written reports. I haven't seen any employee reviews. I haven't seen anything that would lead to the contrary.
yeah, and I think what I would say is that Chris does an exceptional job at what he does. I think where Chris's opportunity, and he and I've talked about this, is probably just a people leadership opportunity. How Chris engaged with staff at times. I think there's opportunities there. And I think that's just something we'll just need to keep a pulse on. If we approve this and Chris does pull his resignation back, we'll just need to make sure
Well,
that.
you're talking in circles here. What are you talking about? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. If they have trouble with his leadership, they sure as hell have troubles with mine. Because I wouldn't put up with half the stuff he puts up with. So, I mean, we hire, read our rules. We hire the district manager. He has the authority to hire and fire. We made that decision.
And that's part of the, I
So
think that's
my
part of the
deal is
issue.
I'm not going to second guess. Do I agree with everything the way he does it? No. I probably wouldn't agree with Jesus Christ if he was doing it. The issue is we've hired the man. He has done one hell of a job, in my opinion. And if somebody has got a problem and it's a staff member, then bring it before the board. But I'm not hurdler.
So I think there's an opportunity in looking at this, and we can proceed with the motion. But I think from a succession planning perspective, and I brought this up a couple of times as well, it's something we probably need to look at. When you have a district manager at the top of the house, everyone reports into him. So there's some checks and balances that we may not have in place today. One of the things that I was going to do as part of this process is evaluate the organizational design. So I think there is an opportunity to establish a right-hand person. And I think it's probably a business operations manager would make sense. Because to your point, we don't have that today.
Well, what I was going to say, and I didn't want to screw up Bill's a very well-written resolution here, until we heard from Chris. But if you're going to open it up, I'll say I would agree, but I wouldn't call it a business manager. I'd say let's get an assistant district manager, somebody that is a manager that can handle talking to a politician, talking to staff of South Florida Water Management District. The staff that we've got, the two positions that we created when we did the Manning table.
Not to cut you off, but let's do this. Let's go through this resolution.
I got one last comment.
Okay, let's go through this, and then we'll talk about, we'll have time. We can talk about.
Yeah, I'd like to have
next step.
Flavia, because this is to your comment about the 2 weeks notice. I was never in a governmental business before, but being in Fortune 500 for 45 years, it has been my past history that the day someone tenders a resignation,
You walk them out.
you walk them out the
Yeah.
door.
Well, and we've,
They
you
clean
know,
out the desk
With their
immediately.
box of belongings.
And it happened to me
On
because
a Friday, I know.
no, the day I came forward.
You do it.
but I wasn't surprised. I was all back because I knew what would happen. But that is more typical.
Well, and Chris said he would give us more time, even in his letter.
Well, okay,
2 weeks
but I was
plus
just
2
answering
weeks,
that one
but I understand what, you know,
particular aspect.
I think we're,
If,
There was some
I think
surprise.
what I heard Chris just say is that he's waiting for what the board's position is on the motion.
And if I may make one quick comment, and this on the leave, it doesn't just impact me, but Kenny, and this kind of started back in Hurricane Irma, and when the staff was smaller, it was hard for either of us to leave. So we started carrying some of that time, and he's in that same position right now. And he said, well, if that's fine, but I'm going to be taking every other week off for the next
It
3 months.
happens when
No, I
you
get it.
don't have succession.
Yeah, and the succession is a big part in some of the things I do. I'd rather hand them off, but I just get in the middle of it.
so if
When
if
we
I'm,
were riding around in the floods in Irma,
Yeah.
on that Saturday, Sunday, when there was nobody else to go to.
yeah, and I think we need to make some alterations, but again, if we have a policy, we need
Okay.
to stick to it. I think that's the problem. We deviated.
I
And
agree
again,
with
I
that.
have no problem with working through it. So just to make sure I'm correct, Tony, in Bill's motion, everything that he has stated with the amendment change to 120, was it also included your recommendation on?
Yes, we resolve that,
Resolving the cash
carryover.
payout?
get
Do
that
we have to
off
be
the table.
specific on the actual amount today, or
I'll-
can we
I'll-
say that we agree to do the cash exchange?
I
At
just
what
do
point we
not-
need to dive deeper into what
Mutually
aligns to
acceptable
our
manner.
policy.
Well, what I would recommend to the board, and I think the board also needs to see if anybody from the public wants to comment, that, just so we have that for the record, that a 3-year contract, so there's no confusion, that the board approved this today and begin implementing it. When's the next pay period, Chris?
Beginning of the next pay period,
And when is the beginning of it?
I could not tell
Monday
you.
the 24th. Already looked it up.
Okay, is it Monday, the 24th? Or is it June 1st?
I'd have to ask Laura. I get direct deposits, so.
Except for that one check that they sent.
Yeah, and so what I would suggest is that in between now and the next board meeting, which is next Thursday, that I prepare a contract based upon the action the board takes, so we have it very clear, so there's no confusion, which would be the 3-year contract, and we have usual termination languages, and also addressing this issue about, I'll call it, in essence, it's a waiver of this, the job
I do
description.
not want to get into a discussion that will lay down the road to a debate about hours spent 6 months from now or.
Oh, no, I agree.
Whatever.
That's why I
This is-
suggest,
This is done.
that's why I
Just wrap it
suggest
up.
the board take this action, to be in the form of, prepare the agreement, provide it to the board next Thursday, so it's all in black and white. And if the board wants to incorporate in there certain benchmarks for Chris, such as come up with a succession plan by a certain date or something, then the board can decide that those might be particular benchmarks for performance evaluations also.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think we should do at Chris's level. We should have quarterly reviews, quarterly performance reviews. Annual is too long. We have too much stuff moving on a quarterly basis. I think we need to do that. And I know that Laura is looking at just our overall performance evaluation and merit increases. So that'll be something that we'll talk about another time. But I think it's something that we need to be looking at, because I think we see what Chris does on a surface level. We don't really see from the day-to-day. We don't really interact with staff as much. I mean, I have regular check-ins, but I think the best way to make sure that our district manager is operating at the highest level in all areas is to have regular check-ins through some type of evaluation process. And we can all work together on what that evaluation looks like, how it's executed. So we do direct, and we also do 360 or peer reviews from
Let's take a
staff.
vote on the motion.
All right, so we will vote on the motion. So all in favor to approve the motion on the board to extend the district manager's existing contract to 3 years at the base amount of 120 plus an annual automatic 4% increase with the additional stipulation of the consideration of cash buyout of accrued vacation time, with the amount to be specifically determined, I guess, post meeting.
I would suggest it be in the agreement, in the actual agreement
In
itself.
the actual,
Yeah.
stipulated within the actual formal contract.
Right, so it's in black and white in the record, so there's no question down the road.
I don't have a problem with
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
Aye.
3, 4, 2 against, the motion passes. So now it's a matter of, we will get something formally written up for you.
Okay.
And then you can formally accept it at that time.
Sure.
That makes sense.
And one thing we missed this year was, the anniversary date and getting that formal review done.
Yeah.
Which was February. And actually the first 2 years I worked here, we didn't do the review, but I think that's very important. And on the leadership part, I just finished taking a class through a Water Environment Federation on organizational leadership. So.
Now that we've got that, you're going to pin the decision to accept, waiting to see the agreement to see what it specifically states? Or can we have a wink or a
verbal?
nod that it looks like that you would accept it?
I'll move forward with the board's direction. I trust Tony.
Okay.
Okay.
So just so you're withdrawing your resignation, just so we have it clear.
Then I would go
I thought you
ahead.
trust the board also, because they ultimately will say yes or no, Tony.
I would go ahead and raise up the second one that we started to talk about to defer the vote. And that is the succession plan. I would like to take and have Chris and possibly Laura. I don't know how we do it with the board. That gets messy, but let's get out and on the street to Fosdy, to Joe DeCerbo, to other people that are in this business that can start trolling for us for an assistant, what I would call assistant district manager, that can help you on your duties. As I told you when we had lunch, there is no way in the world you can juggle in a day the projects we've got going.
Yeah.
There is no way. You're gonna go crazy. You need some help. Not only need for the transition, God forbid you get sick or something. Right now, and this is what's been panicking me on this whole thing, is who knows what's up there of what you're doing. I somewhat know because I've been working with you, but I wouldn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole of trying to negotiate the emergency road, the roundabouts, the easements, the dealing with the county commission, all the things that you're doing. We need a backup person that we can bring in here. So my motion would be, let's get a search.
Can we have a discussion really quick before you jump to motions really quick? Let's just think about this for a second. If we're in agreement that another level needs to be created, which is an assistant director, and I wasn't thinking that way, or assistant district manager, but I like that approach. I was thinking business operations manager, which essentially is an assistant district manager. So I think that direction is right. The question I think we would have, if we all agree that's the right approach, do we put it in the budget for next year for approval? Or do we feel like it's something that we should approve today to start to one, draft an outline, a job description for an assistant district manager. Once we approve that, then we can open that requisition internally and externally. Because
Can you give us at least a week to think that
that's what I would think we should bring it up at the next board meeting to give us a little bit of time to chew on it.
And along that line, some other, to try to come down from the 100,000 foot height down to a little closer. The details of any agreement, I guess the question is, there are typical county manager agreements and which talk about termination for cause, without cause, voting requirements. And I think it's not incorporated in the motion, but I assume the board would want that. Otherwise there'd be a 3-year lock with no ability to terminate. And again,
I think we have our standard terminate
we've
for
got
convenience.
at-will state. We don't
Yeah.
have to have all of that crap in there.
Well,
okay.
he's talking about if we do a contract. He's talking about if we have a contract.
we can put that in the contract, but
Okay.
again, I just wanted to make
What's the
sure,
difference?
because there is, once you get an employment
Again,
contract, then you have a set of
Part of
rights.
my issue is we didn't have a contract with Chris in the first place.
It was
I
that
just disagree
will.
with the contract terms. I think we just should have given him just a bump and
Do
move
we have
forward.
do we have a contract with, who do we have a contract with right now?
Nobody.
Nobody. They're all at
We
will
don't have any
employees.
contracts for our employees.
Okay.
We got away from that with the operations manager and.
The last one was Bill Knight, I think, that had that.
And
I-
now that I'm pretty sure page 3 of our HR says that we should not have any contract with our employees, and it's all at will.
Yeah, I mean, contracts they're in Florida, it doesn't mean
It
anything.
doesn't even make it.
Employment contracts, because you can terminate for convenience at any time. Or
If you-
terminate without clause.
You can
anytime.
put that in there, and also, again, there are multiple forms of management contracts are called. Some you can have that they are at will, you can terminate anytime. Others, they may have cause without cause and set different thresholds for the voting requirements. So I just want to make sure what the consensus of the board is as to, should I still have it as an at will contract?
Are you gonna draw up a contract for it?
Yes, sir.
Well, if we don't like what you've got in there,
Well, tell me.
Chris will be happy to tell you.
I'm sure, yes, sir. I'm
I
always,
think what's important is,
Bill, do you have a red pen?
you know what? I'll bring 6 red pens at the next board
Yeah.
meeting. How's that
we
sound?
just need to,
Yeah.
as we're showing our support for Chris in this position, we also need to make sure that, if it's sometime in the future, if for whatever reason, we need to go in a different direction, that we have the ability to do that. And we're not handcuffed into a contract.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You couched it well. One other aspect real quick. I think the board on a go forward basis also may want to, as I said, establish benchmarks either in the future, maybe not in this contract, but the idea, for example, of other employees who have accrued substantial time, and we in the past thought it was taken care of, saying, okay, we bought it all this down, and let's on a go forward basis keep track and not let it roll over. But I think the board may need to, on an annual basis, say, okay, each employee, where are they? Do that just prior to the end of the year on which it's calculated, and come to a decision as to buying out or not rolling over.
Well, all of
And
that's,
just, or it goes away. I mean, use it, lose it, or buy out. I mean, that's the board.
all that's easy to say if you have a succession plan. If you don't, because I've been in this boat before, where you get key people that handle stuff and you can't let them take a vacation. They haven't got.
Well, I think we get in a position that we're in
We got-
today, whereas
yes.
you've got someone
We need to
who,
address that.
you have someone who resigned, who didn't say that compensation was even part of the discussion. We've come back with a 25%, 20% increase. I don't know where you're at today, but which is accepted. So that's also setting a precedent for other key members of staff where there is no succession plan. So the easiest way to get a 20% increase in salary is to resign. So we have to be careful what precedent we're setting. Now, the way to get around that is we should be having these conversations annually on, are we paying our employees appropriately? And I think this board has done a good job of increasing salaries when the conversation comes up. But, again, I do this for a living, so we have to be very careful about the precedents that we're setting as a board. That's what we do.
Well, other key
Okay.
employees might find out they're not quite as key too.
That's what they might find out.
That's the other side of that.
And if we want to test the
When
waters
you
that
flip
way,
it.
then that's fine. Then we just have to be
Yeah, but,
ready for attrition that could come
Again,
through.
That's exactly
again, have a
right.
succession plan and that solves a lot of problems.
Yes.
And again, I recognize the conversation and discussion. I appreciate it as to succession plan, no succession plan, key people and working excessive time or not utilizing their vacation time or accrued time or PTO, whatever you want to call it. But I think the board needs to have a consistent application of that policy on a go forward basis.
Well, this is the same conversation we've had around ponds and everything else. When we put a policy in place, we need to adhere to it. There
Absolutely.
is no exception.
Yeah, and
So
this
whatever we do during this case, we'll work with Chris, you'll work with Laura and the new HR representative,
Yeah.
which we now have. You put a policy in place and you adhere to it.
Well, I
And-
think it's key, especially in the labor employment law sector, employment area.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's the only thing that scares me on what we're talking about.
And Laura made it clear when we did this, because in past years it has been bought out and it carried forward. And she said, this was the last year we we're going to do it and use it up before the year's out.
Well,
So
And that's,
And we ought to
unfortunately, it's
know-
to your benefit at this point.
We ought to know the exposure if we've got this with other employees.
Well, we're gonna have
To
to.
what
So
extent
now the
it is.
precedent is anyone that is over and above what the policy is, we cash pay them out. So just so you know, that's the policy
I think-
that's the precedent we've created.
I
Yeah,
would
what I would
not
say-
screw any employee out of their deferred.
And I don't
payments.
disagree.
No,
but
But what I
we're
would
acting
suggest,
outside of policy.
yeah, what I would suggest, it's like anything else, if there's an argument of waiver by virtue of not enforcing a policy as to practices up to the present day, that corrective action be taken now to remedy it, to bring it. And I thought we had done this, I think Flavia was correct years ago. Thought I had addressed it by making people either paying out or take the time off to bring it to the level consistent with the manual about you can only roll over X, you can't roll over everything. And so I think then that's the key part is from this point forward, if that implementing the policy after you adjust for others who are in a similar boat, but we need to do that.
But isn't
We
that a
better be looking
management
at that
function?
manual then.
Isn't that a management function to make sure we're
Absolutely.
complying?
Yeah, I mean,
That should
it's
be
actually, and it falls at the top of the house. And that's where one of the problems. is.
Except the
And I
top
get-
of the
look,
house,
I
except the
understand.
top of the
guy
house for
works
that
his butt
position
off, but
is
he doesn't
right
take
here.
vacation time. I
Yeah,
get that.
I know that.
And he shouldn't be
We
penalized.
were
for
all
working hard.
faced with it.
Yeah.
Listen,
So-
it was done, and I remember to the point that there were employees that were working 4 days a week, half days. So I'm not saying that it can, that Chris cannot take a week off or 2 weeks off, but there were employees that were working there was no Friday. There were employees that were not working Friday for 2
L
months
was one.
straight.
I think
L
we
was one.
forced L to take time off.
So that's what I'm saying. I understand that Chris, we're not in a position that even Chris, I don't even think Kenny, I don't even think, most of them, they cannot. But then maybe
But
they
that's a problem.
rotate. If Chris cannot, Chris will have Mondays off, I don't think Monday, but whatever is the day that he works, Wednesdays, he'll have off, Kenny will be here. And if Kenny, because I'm assuming Kenny's in the same boat as I heard him say it. So, or half days for the next 5 months.
It's a
It
way
is
we
what it
got to
is.
manage our way through it.
That's
Well,
what we have
and-
to
and
do.
the pro- And this is what we need to think about in the budget discussion. And I know everyone's ready to get out of here, but in order to have succession planning, you have to have those people or positions in place that are positioned to succeed, right? And I think Kenny's been doing it in, in his org to make sure that he's got someone that in the event that he's out for a day or leaves or whatever, he's got someone there. But no one's going to jump in and take Kenny's spot tomorrow, right? So that has to happen every time. And you got to have a position under him that's attractive enough that is identified as the successor. Same thing with Chris. I love the idea of
Well, it's all vulnerability. How much you're willing to pay to have a coverage
So
all the way down
my
the
point
line.
is, we need to be thinking about that
Yeah.
in the next budget cycle. Like, make sure we've got, it might call us for 2
Absolutely.
more positions that we've got to either elevate or create, but we're moving in the right direction. I think we're doing what we're supposed to. Anything else that we need to cover today before we adjourn?
What was the outcome of the meeting yesterday relative to the Survey Monkey?
I don't think it's been,
I think there was
Is it
some
ready to go
adjustments
out?
made from comments, but they were going to put it out tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's ready to go.
It's-
Great,
I think
great, great.
And that
I think
meeting-
I'd like to just do a final review of that before we send it out, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'd like to see
Yeah,
that.
so let's send it out to the board. Let us maybe take the survey first, and then send it out to the board presidents and all the other channels. But I did want to congratulate staff for the President's
Good
Council
job.
yesterday. I thought it was a very good meeting. The feedback that I received directly
Very good
from those, I thought
community
was-
council meet and greet.
Community council meeting great, yeah.
I really believe we should have had minutes. Should have had minutes.
I got
But it
4
wasn't a
pages
meeting.
of them.
Well, but the minutes should be compiled and sent to everybody that participated.
Well, we'll do that
and those that.
Oh, no,
I
you,
know.
oh, you need to have minutes prepared.
We had an agenda.
No, you need to have minutes prepared.
So, well, I was told we weren't going to do that in yesterday's
I
meeting.
didn't think
That's
that we
one
had to.
deficiency.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
All
So
meetings.
Okay, good.
we'll send.
Because I
minutes out.
believe we should do that strong.
I've got
Okay.
plenty of paperwork to produce minutes.
Me too.
All right, well, I will call this extended meeting adjourned at 3:45. Thank you all.